بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له الملك الحق المبين وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله سيد ولد آدم أجمعين صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه الطيبين الطاهرين على مر الأيام والليالي والشهور والسنين أما بعد. As we continue with the explanation of this tremendous treatise entitled Al-Hamawiyyah or Fatwa Al-Hamawiyyah Al-Kubra by the great Imam Shaykh al-Islam Abu al-Abbas Taqiyuddin Ahmad ibn Abd al-Halim ibn Abd al-Salam ibn Taymiyyah al-Harrani al-Dimashqi, the one who died 728 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. With the time now 6:41 p.m. Wednesday, November the 16th, 2022, which agrees on the Al-Hijri or Tariq Al-Islami, Al-Hijri or the Islamic calendar, the Islamic date is the 23rd of technically Thursday night, technically by the Islamic calendar. Was now the year 1444 after the migration of our Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and we said it is 23rd of Rabi' al-Thani, of the month of Rabi' al-Thani. We were discussing the affair of Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah as he brought in this treatise. He brought very important information where he was using evidences and proofs of what he was calling to, and substantiating his call by all the different affairs during the time of the Message of Allah, by what was the position of the companions as far as in their belief. In addition to that, of those who came after, especially from those Muslims who embarked upon misguided information that they were misled by, and you'll find that they to this day still have adopted the same perverted ideologies that have led some of the Muslims astray. You'll find that Shaykh al-Islam, he brings the evidences and the proofs of what was the belief of these great scholars that these Muslims, or the Muslims, some of them, that they so-called claim they follow in regards to the branches of the religion, but not following them in the foundations of the religion. That's the importance. If you were to say that you follow an individual, first, number one, you have to look and examine their belief. Is their belief intact? Is it in accordance to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has sent down to his final prophet and noble messenger? That is what has to be examined and scrutinized to the fullest capacity. Then, if that affair, or when one concludes that thereupon what is sound in those matters, similar to that is the scholar Abu Hanifa, who Shaykh al-Islam Taymiyyah was bringing his belief in his creed, what he was upon. Because you'll find there are Muslims out there that say, I follow the madhab al-Hanafi, or I'm so-called Hanafi in my madhab. So Shaykh al-Islam brings the belief of Abu Hanifa. He's saying, if you so-called claim that you follow this particular scholar in Islam, what is incumbent upon one is to follow him in his belief, not to follow him in his fiqh, or follow him in the fiqh affair, especially in the affairs in which he made some mistakes. And you'll find that they still blind follow those errors. For those affairs that you'll find Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, that he was correct in, of course we know the scholar who's properly qualified will attain 2 rewards. And those affairs that he made a mistake in, he will attain 1. But it is binding upon the people not to follow him in those errors. So those matters, like we said, what one starts with, if he wanted to so-called follow that particular scholar, he has to examine his belief in his creed. The belief in the creed is the utmost importance that one Muslim has to examine and scrutinize. Right. So what was the affair where we stopped at from last class? We talked about the matters of the Khawarij. We talked about the affairs pertaining to the rulers. And what was Abu Hanifa's position. Right. Notice that the narrators we talked about last class, with an individual, his name was Abu Muti' al-Hakim ibn Abdullah al-Balkhi. He asked him another question. If we go back to the book, it says, قُلْتُ فَإِنْ قَالَ إِنَّهُ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ. Let me go back. قال أبو حنيفة عمن قال لا أعرف ربي في السماء أم في الأرض فقد كفر. Your father Abu Hanifa, he was asked concerning matters of belief. Abu Muti' asked him a question, Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah. He said, Amman qal, about the one who says, the Muslim, who says, I don't know my Lord if he's in the heavens or in the earth. Confused. So Abu Hanifa upon this said, indeed, and he's saying this generally, not specifically, generally, indeed, he has disbelieved. Meaning a person that's doubtful concerning where their Lord is. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the most merciful above the throne, he ascended. Meaning, Allah is above the throne. And Allah ta'ala is above the seven heavens. Right. So he continues to say, قُلْتُ. So Shaykh al-Islam brings the statement or the question of Abu Muti' al-Hakim ibn Abdullah al-Balkhi, asking Shaykh al-Islam, asking Abu Hanifa, he said, فَإِنْ قَالَ إِنَّهُ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ اسْتَوَى ولكنه يقول لا أدري العرش في السماء أم في الأرض. طيب. He said, for a person now is to say, verily Allah is above the arsh, he ascended, of course, above the throne. However, he'll say, I don't know the throne. Is the throne in the heavens or is the throne in the earth? Confused. He said, a person that's in this state, where he's reluctant and he's doubtful, he's saying generally, that he's a disbeliever. Why? Because he has denied that the throne is above the heavens. And he said Allah is in the highest of the high, meaning above those heavens. He's in the highest of those heavens, means above the seven heavens. And Allah is invoked, meaning when the servant, when he invokes his Lord in his prayers, and when he prays, the affair, what is instinctively implanted in his mind when he prays, or when he invokes Allah by raising his hands, is that Allah is above him, not below him, not to the side, not around, but the heart, you'll find, instinctively goes towards what is above. وفي لفظ, you'll find Abu Muti' al-Balkhi, he also asked Abu Hanifa, he said, سألت أبا حنيفة عما يقول لا أعرف ربي في السماء أم في الأرض قال قد كفر لأن الله تعالى يقول الرحمن على العرش استوى وعرشه فوق 7 سماوات قال فإنه يقول على العرش استوى ولكن لا يدري العرش في الأرض أو في السماء قال إنه أنكر أنه في السماء فقد كفر. So this is the belief of Abu Hanifa. This is the belief of Abu Hanifa in Aqidah, in his belief. You'll find that he was continued, or as it continues to investigate what was his belief or what was his creed, rahimahullah. Abu Muti' says, I asked Abu Hanifa about the one who says, I don't know my Lord in the heavens or in the earth. He said, I don't know. I don't know where he is. Is he in the heavens? Is he in the earth? Where is he? He said, the person that's reluctant and their state is confused like this, generally, indeed, he has disbelieved. Generally. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in his book, the one who's Ar-Rahman, the most merciful above the throne, ascended. Before that, what about Allah's throne? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described that he has a throne. Where is this throne? Where is it? Is it everywhere? Is it below? Where is the throne of Allah? Allah has also affirmed in His book that He has a kursi. The kursi, which is the mawdi'ul qadamayn, which is the place of the 2 feet of Allah Ta'ala. Where is this kursi? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has an ayah that one recites, and it is legislated for one to recite it after your prayers. And it's legislated for one to recite it before you go to bed at night. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will appoint a protector for you while you are asleep. From those verses that are considered from the greatest. Rather, they contain those great benefits, and it's called Ayatul Kursi. The verse of the Kursi of Allah. So where is the throne of Allah? Where is it? Allah Ta'ala has said that it's merely the Kursi. He says that it's bigger and it encompasses the heavens and the earth. So you used to ask a person who believes that Allah is everywhere. Before we talk about the affair of Allah Himself, and His affair is the greatest. Let's go to the affairs in which Allah is affirmed where He has a throne. Where is that? Is it everywhere? Is it next to you? Is it surrounding you? Where is this throne? So you'll find that the affair of the throne, if they try to say it's everywhere, nobody's going to believe you. If you say the throne of Allah is in us, nobody will believe you. No one will what? No one will now affirm that particular doubt, and no one will be what? Except that the Muslim who has some type of knowledge will know that you're what? That you are gravely mistaken. That affair of the throne of Allah, in which Allah has described that He's above that throne. Where is the throne of Allah? Where is the kursi of Allah? Before we talked about Dhatuhu, or Dhatu al-Rab al-Muqaddasa, before we talk about our great Lord, وَمَا أَعْظَمَ شَأْنَهُ, and His affair is the greatest, let's talk about the throne in which He said that's considered the roof of the creation. Meaning there's nothing except when the creation, the furthest extent of the heavens and the earth, that there is a barrier where it stops. And that affair is extremely far and remote, where no human being has what? Traveled that great distance except the Messenger of Allah ﷺ on the Laylat al-Isra wal Mi'raj. On the night when he ascended and Allah raised him, first from Al-Haram al-Makki to the Masjid which is in Quds in Palestine. Then Allah Ta'ala raised His Messenger to the greatest, most remote place in the creation, al-Itlaq, generally. There's no great distance greater than the distance of what is above the heavens. Of the 7 heavens in which Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala has described from one heaven to the next, as it comes in the authentic narrations, that from one heaven to the second is the distance of 500 years. One to the second heaven is the distance of 500 years. And from the second to the third, as we mentioned, similar to that. Those matters in that great distance, if you was to ask those Muslims who believe that Allah is everywhere, where's this great distance that Allah has described? Of one heaven to another heaven, from another heaven to another heaven. It's not everywhere. It's not in you. It's from one distance, from another, which is the distance of 500 years, in which you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has also mentioned about His angels. As it says in Surah Al-Ma'arij, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book, in Surah Al-Ma'arij, تَعْرُجُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالْرُوحُ إِلَيْهِ فِي يَوْمٍ كَانَ مِقْدَارُهُ 50,000 سَنَةً فَاصْبِرْ صَبْرًا جَمِيلًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in His book about the angels. They said that the angels ascend, and Jibreel, the Ruh, ascend to Him, as it says it clearly. And it has the harf al-jar, the preposition to Him. It says ascend to Him. Where is this ascension? Now listen to what it says. As we know in the Arabic language, the word uruj means ascension, means su'ud, means ascension. Now listen to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Ma'arij. He said the angels in the Ruh ascend to Him in a time frame of what we understand of 50,000 years. It's in Surah Al-Ma'arij. It's right there. That the angels in the Ruh ascend to Him in a time frame of what we understand of 50,000 years. It's a verse. Where is all this great distance? And the angels, it says they ascend to Him. There's nothing that you can understand from this verse except that you take that the angels ascend to a a specific place that's above. And that a place that we say, when we say place, is not a place that contains Allah or that Allah is contained within the heavens. Meaning, there is a particular creation, there's a place where those heavens are, and that Allah is what? Above the creation. Rather, Allah Ta'ala is bigger than everything. Allah Ta'ala is what, everyone? Akbar min kulli shay. طيب. So that's what you'll find, ya ma'ashar al-ikhwan. So that you'll find similar to these verses that Allah Ta'ala has mentioned concerning the arsh and concerning the kursi. طيب. So let's continue. So Abu Hanifa, in his book entitled Al-Fiqh al-Akbar, he was asked concerning these important matters, especially in regards to the belief of the believer, that in order for him to have yaqeen, to attain surety, then he needs to have surety in what's considered from his belief pertaining to his Lord or concerning his Lord of where he is, subhanahu, where he is. Those matters are very what? Important. طيب. What we mentioned is said. Notice that Abu Hanifa was asked this question. What about a person who says, I don't know my Lord, whether he's in the heavens, where he is, whether he's in the earth? He said, be attentive of what he used the word, as we mentioned last class, fi as-sama. As we said the word of the harf al-jar, or the preposition fi. We already talked about this last class, right everyone? And I want to repeat it because I want to start with what's new today. Where is his Lord? Is Allah Ta'ala in the earth mixed with his creation, or in the heavens separate and distinct from his creation? He's doubtful in that. As we said, you'll find Abu Hanifa said that individual who does not have surety in that matter, and he's doubtful concerning that, and he rejects a verse from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if he rejects that verse where Allah clearly establishes that he is above the heavens and above the arsh, he rejects it, generally that person has fallen into major disbelief. So generally. In contrast to, like we said, talking about those Muslims that have been misguided due to those evil scholars that misled them, their state is different. They are excused due to ignorance and due to the doubt that those evil scholars misled them by. So generally we're talking about the general ruling here, not the specific ruling that's applied to a specific individual. That's something different. Those conditions and those stipulations have their what? Have their place in regards to that person. However, generally the ruling is that a person that's doubtful concerning these very important matters, that no Muslim is excused of his ignorance. Meaning, he needs to attain knowledge that will give him surety in these matters without having any reluctancy, without having any wavering or doubt. He has to have yaqeen and surety of these matters. And do not let anyone or anything tell him otherwise, that his Lord is above him. And that these matters are of the utmost importance, because every Muslim strives every day, and his mission every day is to actualize the ubudiyyah of Allah, actualizing the worship of Allah and his servitude for his Lord. You alright? The servitude of his Lord every day. What is meaning, or what is from those matters that when you embark upon this mission, except that everyone strives to the utmost to die upon surety in their religion. No one wants to die upon doubt concerning Allah. Those are from the most dangerous affairs. Why? Because Allah Ta'ala has said in his book, upon the tongue of Ibrahim, he said, يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. On the day when no one's wealth or their children will benefit them, except to the one who comes to Allah with a sound heart. No one wants to come to Allah on the day of resurrection having wavering in doubt and having matters that they're doubtful in. Those matters are what are extremely dangerous. To meet Allah in the most vital of affairs which you are wavering in and doubtful in is of the utmost of what? Danger. That's the reason why, like we said, these matters, one needs to be what? Solid, sturdy, and strong, without letting any wind blow to the point where you become affected. These are affairs you have to have surety in. You can't waver in it. You have to have doubt, and no one try to tell you otherwise or come with some false information to remove this doubt from your heart. Why? Because like we said, everyone, this matter of Allah Ta'ala being above is from those affairs, like we said, from the conviction of the Muslim that needs to be tied around your heart in a manner that is what? It's very secure. So he goes on to say that Allah Ta'ala, He says in His book that a person that denies or rejects what Allah has said, that the most merciful above the throne ascended. As we know, the word ascension in the Quran is what? In 7 places. Meaning in 7 surah. In 7 surah. And that Allah's throne likewise is what? Above the 7 heavens. Rather, you'll find that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says in His book that His throne is above water. That there's a water hovering in the heavens also. And that's from His signs in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can create affairs that goes against what we perceive as what is normal by the oceans or what have you. How Allah could create affairs that goes against what we think is the norm. Where He could create water that hovers in the air. And that's just in the air. And no one is holding it except Allah Ta'ala. For those matters, you'll find that Allah mentions in a verse where He said, وَكَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ, that His throne is above water. So you have the 7 heavens, you have the kursi, then you have the water, then you have the throne. That is the what? The ceiling, and that is the boundary of the creation. After that, the throne of Allah, no one is above the throne except Allah. But that is where the creation ends. That's it. Where, everyone? The Arsh of Allah. The Arsh of Allah is the roof of the heavens, the roof of the creation. The roof of the creation. Saqf al-makhluqat. That's where the creation stops. Then, as we know, the Arsh of Allah, no one knows its measurement, no one knows its great size, no one can count is how big it is. As you'll find, as it says, Ibn Abbas, and he mentioned it, said, أَمَّا الْعَرْشْ فَلَا يُقَدَّرُ قَدْرُ. As far as the throne of Allah, then it cannot be what? It cannot be measured. Due to its great size, due to how what? Great and vast it is. Fine. So we mentioned it said, Allah Ta'ala, as he goes on, I'm sorry everyone, that His throne is above the 7 heavens. عَرْشُهُ سَقْفُ الدُّنْيَا. Similar to that, وَفَوْقَ الْكُرْسِي. That the throne of Allah is, as we mentioned, is above the heavens and it's above the kursi. The kursi, where they translate it as the footstool, where is the place of the 2 feet. The 2 feet that befits Him, and it does not resemble the feet of the creation. And we establish for Allah that He has that feet that befits Him, and it does not resemble the foot of the creation at all. Those matters, like we said, Allah Ta'ala has said on the day of resurrection, when the hellfire is destroying, where people are being thrown in it, وَالْعِيَاذُ بِاللَّهِ, may Allah protect us and protect you from being thrown into hell, that the hellfire, that the only way it will be stopped is when Allah Ta'ala puts His magnificent foot upon it and say, that's enough, that's enough. But that's to show how big and how great the hellfire will be. That Allah Ta'ala will stop the punishment, but He will have to put His foot upon it and say, that's it. Until it will come in the narration that the hellfire will fold up, and that will be what? To the point where His magnificence, subhanahu, will stop the hellfire from devouring the creation with iyad billah. But that is in order to show and establish what? That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has those 2 feet that befits Him, which comes in the authentic narration in the Sahih Bukhari. You'll find that in the narration that we spoke about last class, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is above the throne, and from those evidences and proofs is this hadith here, everyone. إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَتَبَ كِتَابًا قَبْلَ أَن يَخْلُقَ الْخَلْقِ وَهُوَ عِنْدَهُ فَوْقَ الْعَرْشِ إِنَّ رَحْمَتِي سَبَقَتْ غَضَبِي. Verily Allah has written with Himself in the book that is with Him above the throne, where it says, verily my mercy precedes my wrath. Verily my mercy precedes my wrath. Where's the point of evidence that we extract from this narration, everyone? It's a book that is with Him above the throne. That's it. Where is this book? So if you was to ask the Asha'ira, where's this book? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said there's a book with Him above the throne. Where is this? They say Allah is everywhere. Or Allah exists without a place. That's another confusing statement they say. Allah exists without a place. Which also is what? Confusing. Any Muslim that comes and learns this nonsense, except that it will cast doubt in their heart. The majority of the people that embrace and learn this nonsense, you'll find that they are the ones who subjected to what? Deviation and doubt in their religion. And they go back to the streets, or they go back to the life they used to live, because these type of beliefs does not enable one to attain surety at all. Rather, it increases them in more confusion and more what? Bewilderment, where they have no surety in the belief that they're upon. That's why you'll find that the majority of the people that they embark upon debating. Why? Because they have some sickness in their heart where they were trying to remove it. So they try to look for people who they can what? Debate with, so they can win the debate, so it can give them some type of what? Surety. But it doesn't what? They don't attain what they're looking for. So they have to keep debating and keep debating. It's like a sickness they can't what? Get rid of. So they try to keep debating and keep debating and keep debating. I'm gonna look for some Sunni or some person Salafi. I'm gonna debate with you. Why? They doubt. They have doubt. It's confusing. I don't believe this. So I gotta find someone I gotta argue with, win the argument, so I can feel good about myself. But the sickness is still there. They're still running around confused. Is it clear, everyone? That's the reason why you'll find that this is usually their case. This is what they do. They go around looking for debates and arguments, trying to get rid of a sickness that they what? Can't get rid of. Because these type of beliefs, it plants the seed of doubt and it will stay there. They will not be able to rid themselves of it until they learn otherwise. And they rectify their belief and rewire their aqidah, rewire their conviction. Once they rewire it, then the correct belief, if they embrace it and make tawbah and sincere tawbah to Allah and embrace what's correct, then that doubt will be removed bi'idhnillah jalla az. But other than that, to continue upon that belief that Allah ta'ala, that His throne is not, we don't know where it is. Where is this throne at? This throne in which Ibn Abbas said that you can't measure it, how big it is and how vast it is. And that's considered from the what? The ceiling of the creation, where that's where the creation ends. Where is this throne? And they'll say, oh, we don't know for sure. Where is it? Is it in me? No. Is it next to me? No. Where is it? It's in some place, I just don't know where. That's doubt. Once a person now knows, especially when they read the verses in the book of Allah, that the throne is above the heavens, rather it's the highest above the heavens, and that the creation, that the affairs that's pertaining to what's created stops, and that Allah is above that, it's clear. Simple. Doesn't take a rocket science genius to understand this understanding here. It's clear. The throne of Allah is above, and Allah is above that. Once you say that, it brings a Muslim what? Surety. You say otherwise, I don't know where the throne is, and Allah is inside of me. Anyone that hears that nonsense, they're going to be like, what? I don't know where the throne is, and Allah is everywhere. You understand, everyone? Those type of statements, like we said, you used to contemplate on that. What type of doubt it will bring to the Muslims or to the one who's trying to learn their religion. In addition to that, you even made the Christians better than you. Where the people who are upon disbelief in this particular instance are better than you in your understanding, even though you're Muslim. Where they even believe, as they say, even though they bring something else that's corrupt, they'll say, our Father in heaven. The point of the matter is generally they're affirming that Allah is where? Above. Is it clear, everyone? You're making the Christian in this particular regard better than you. Because they even say that. They say, our Father where? Our Father in heaven. Even though, like we said, we know Allah is not the father of anyone, nor does He have children. But the point of the matter is that we said that they're affirming that Allah is where? He's above. That's the issue that we wanted to describe here. Fine, so keep continuing. So when we say that Allah is not mixed with the creation, He's not mixed at all. And He's not contained in the sky. So you'll find that the Asha'ira, this is from their beliefs. They say this, when you say Allah is above the heavens, they say that necessitates that He's contained within the creation. That He's contained in the seven heavens. How is Allah Ta'ala contained or inside of the creation when He's the one that created the creation? And His kursi, the footstool, as we mentioned, that encompasses the heavens and the earth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala clearly says that in the verses Surah Ayatul Kursi. وَسِعَ كُرْسِيُّهُ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. That's just the footstool of Allah. The footstool of Allah encompasses everything in the heavens and earth. Meaning that it's greater than everything in the heavens and earth. The seven heavens. And the great distance, his footstool. The Prophet ﷺ, it comes in the narration as we talked about Hadith al-Aw'al, where it says, the footstool in comparison to the throne of Allah, how we will understand it, to let you know how big it is, and how great it is, and how magnificent His creation is. It's like one taking a ring, an iron ring, in comparison to the footstool being compared to the footstool being compared to the throne, is like one of you taking an iron what? Ring and throwing it in the middle of a desolate desert. That's in order to give how big the footstool is in comparison to the what, everyone? In comparison to the Arsh. That's huge. So the seven heavens, it's like a little ring. Smaller than that. Keep in mind, the seven heavens, each heaven from each one, from distance of 500 years. That's what we tell everyone. Leave off all the nonsense of Star Trek and all that other nonsense. Worship, focus on your worship, you preparing to meet Allah in the hereafter. That's your what? Purpose of creation. No more, no less. You do not have time to delve into those secrets that your lifespan will never be able to even begin to scratch the surface of the universe. Because just from one heaven to the second is the distance of 500 years. You wouldn't even begin to scratch the surface due to the less time you have in the lifespan of human beings. Even these days, we know human beings aren't even living that long anymore. A lot of them are dying very early now. How would you think you'll be able to even begin to scratch the surface of 500 years from one heaven to the second? Then you have the second to the third. Those great seven heavens, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala just said the footstool. Keep in mind, the footstool in comparison to the what? And to comparison to Arsh is like taking a ring and throwing it in the middle of a desolate desert. What about the seven heavens in comparison to Kursi is smaller than that? So keep this in mind. The seven heavens, how great it is, how we perceive how big it is, in comparison to the Kursi of Allah, is extremely small. Like the Kursi of Allah, in comparison to the throne, is like taking a ring and throwing it in the middle of a desolate desert. That's in comparison to the throne. What about Allah? That's why they said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is bigger than everything. Akbar min kulli shay. How could you even begin to think how great Allah is that He would be contained in the creation? How would your mind be able to think that? Due to how small it is in comparison just to the Kursi and to the Arsh. It's just extremely small, mere less than a dot to the vastness of the throne of Allah Ta'ala. That's the size of the Arsh. What about Allah Himself? مَا أَعْظَمَ شَأْنَهُ سُبْحَانَهُ. How great magnificent His affairs, subhanahu. وَمَا قَدَرُوهُ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ. You'll find that they did not glorify Him as He deserves to be glorified, subhanahu. So when we say Allah is above the heavens, this information is to put in your mind that it would never even come to a person as the correct aqeedah that Allah will be inside of it. Once you break it down this way, anyone with any sound understanding would know that Allah Ta'ala is not mixed within the creation, even though you say the statement that He's above it. Is it clear, everyone? Is it clear or is it not clear? So when one comes or they say that He's above the seven heavens, it should not come to their mind. وَلَا يَنصَرِفَنَّ ذِهْنُهُ إِلَىٰ أَنَّهُ مَغْرُوفٌ أو داخل هذه السماوات أو داخل هذه الأجرام. It should never come to their mind that He's in the creation or that He's inside of these types of creations that Allah has made. Like we said, everyone, the throne, no one knows its size and how great it is, and the vastness of how big it is. He says, and no matter how many attempts, and listen what the great Imam, Shaykh Muhammad Ahmad Jami, he says, rahimahullah, he says a very beneficial statement. He said, وَكَيْفَ يُحَاوِلُ الْعَقْلِ أَنْ يَعْرِفَ كَيْفِيَّةَ وَحَقِيقَةَ ذَاتِ الرَّبِّ وَحَقِيقَةَ أَسْمَائِهِ وَصِفَاتِهِ. بل التفويض هنا واجب تفويض كيفية الذات والصفات والأسماء هذا تفويض واجب صار عليه صرف هذه الأمة وقالوا العجز عن درك إدراك يعني عجزك عن إدراك حقيقة ذات الرب وإدراك حقيقة صفاته واسمائه وأفعاله وعجزك عن إدراك سر قدره هذا هو الإدراك الإدراك. So you know what he's talking about here, and I'm going to just say this, try to clarify it. He says, how can the mind begin or make an attempt to know how in the reality of the essence of Allah Himself and the reality of His names and His attributes? Rather, in trusting how it is, here is obligatory. How it is. Not the meaning, how it is. The meaning is clear. In trusting how Allah's essence is, how Allah's characteristics are, how His names are, that is an entrustment that's obligatory, in which you'll find that the message of Allah was upon and His companions. They were upon this. And this is what listen to the statement. They say, the incapability of attaining the reality of how it is, it's attaining it. Is it clear? That's considered attaining it. Your inability to now fathom reality or the true reality of how it is, that's considered us understanding it properly and attaining it. Is it clear? So, al-ajzu an al-idraki huwa al-idraku. That's what the statement is. Al-ajzu an al-idraki huwa al-idraku. The incapability to attain of how the affair is, or the reality of how it is, that's clearly and properly understanding it. Is it clear, everyone? And I've mentioned this on numerous occasions. They say, what do you mean by that? How the characteristics of Allah you can't understand. How can you think you're going to begin to understand His essence? You cannot understand in your mind that Allah hears everything in the heavens and earth at the same time. Can your mind begin to understand it? Just by the mere sound reasoning. Can you begin to understand of the distance of from second to the heaven is 500 years, all the way up to the seven heavens. Allah Ta'ala hears all of that, including the ants under this carpet that you can't hear, even those right under your feet right now. Allah hears all of it. Can your mind begin to understand that? That's a characteristic of Allah that your mind cannot begin to understand. So how can you think that's a characteristic of Him, subhanahu wa ta'ala. How can you begin to think that you can begin to understand His essence? That's a characteristic. What about His essence? That's why they came with the qa'idah, as we mentioned on so many occasions. What everyone? Al-kalam fi sifat far'un an al-kalam fi dhat yahdu hadwa. Speaking about His characteristics is a branch of speaking about His essence. They emulate each other. What does that mean? That means if you cannot begin to understand how a characteristic of Allah is, how can you begin to think that you can know His essence? Is it clear, everyone? Another example. Allah sees everything in the heavens and the earth. Can your mind understand? No matter of fact, let's go back to hearing. Allah hears everything in the heavens and the earth. All at the same time. Nothing escapes His knowledge in His hearing. Subhanallah. He even understands all the languages and what they say and what they utter. He understands all of it. Subhanallah. And understands their needs and their invocations. Can your mind begin to understand that? That's a characteristic of Allah. How can you begin to think you can understand His essence? His essence is His characteristic is you can't fathom it. You will never begin to think of His essence. You cannot understand something that has no beginning. Way beyond your comprehension. And a being or deity that has no beginning and has no ending, whose knowledge is not preceded by ignorance. Can your mind understand that? Can't. Those are His characteristics. What about His what, everyone? His essence. His essence is what? Is greater, subhanahu. His essence, tabaraka wa ta'ala. So that's what you'll find, as we mentioned and said, everyone, that this statement, al-ajiz, it's the great Muhammad Ahmad Jami says this, عجزك عن إدراك حقيقة ذات الرب سبحانه وإدراك حقيقة صفاته وأسمائه وأفعاله وعجزك عن إدراك سر قدره هذا هو الإدراك. He says your incapability, my glasses, your incapability of attaining the true reality of the essence of Allah Ta'ala, and you're not able to attain the reality of His characteristics and His names and His actions, and your incapability of trying to fathom and understand and attain the secret of His divine decree and His destiny, that is considered truly understanding it. Al-ajzu an al-idraki huwa al-idraku. Your incapability of not able to attain the affair of how these matters are, that is considered understanding it properly. Is it clear, everyone? هذا هو الإدراك. He said فقد علم العلم الذي يجب عليه يعلم وهو علم قدره وعلم جهله وعلم عدم إدراكه لهذه الحقائق وسلم لله وذلك التسليم وسلم لله ذلك التسليم التسليم لله ولرسوله والإيمان ما سلم أحد في دينه إلا من سلم لله. To the end of it. The great Imam Muhammad Ahmad Jami, he goes on to say that a person has knowledge of his ability, meaning a person knows their boundary, their boundaries where their affairs become bounded, and he knows his ignorance, and he knows he will not be able to fathom these realities of how Allah Ta'ala He is. Why? Because there is no blind faith in our religion. Our faith is a faith of submission to Allah. That type of submission to Allah and His Messenger Sallallahu, that is true. That's considered true faith. ما سلم أحد في دينه إلا من سلم لله سلم لله وسلم لرسول الله الذي هو أمينه على وحيه. He said no one will be sound in their religion or saved in their religion unless they submit to Allah. Submitting to Allah, submitting to His Messenger, who is considered the trustworthy one for the revelation to be delivered to the people. Is it clear so far, everyone? No. Well, we'll stop here. I'm going to go listen tomorrow. We'll continue tomorrow. Put a point on that and we'll stop. Any questions about the lesson?
Well, I said that only thing about the throne is Him. And then you said that the book is with Him. But the book isn't created. Is the book created?
Yeah, that's the Lawh al-Mahfuz. That's created.
It's created.
The preserved text is created. The Quran is not created. But the book is created.
So if the book is created, it's with Him.
The Lawh al-Mahfuz. The preserved tablet. The preserved tablet. That's created.
And that's the book that's with Him.
That's the book that's with Him.
Above the throne?
Above the throne.
I thought that nothing above the throne was created.
No, the book is with Allah, above the throne. Where is there a hadith that says there's nothing above the throne with Him?
No, I thought I understood the ayah that you said. I thought the ayah that you said nothing above the throne was created.
No, I said that's where the creation stops. That's what I said. I said nothing above the throne was created. I said that? Did I say that?
That's how I understood it to be.
No. I'm saying where the creation stops, as far as the vast creation of the dunya and the seven heavens that's above it. Everything stops there. But as far as the book that Allah, the Prophet ﷺ said, that's with Allah, then we can say that that's an exception. That Allah Ta'ala has a book in which He's written in it, verily my mercy precedes my wrath. That book is with Him. That's it. I thought I was someone. I thought I might have said something I wasn't supposed to say. Tafadhal. I thought I said something. That's why I wanted to make sure I didn't say it. I said if I said that, then it'd be rectified. No, seriously, if I said it, then I have to clarify it. Did I say that? Did I say that
No, you
But I clarified
same
it.
thing. That's where the creation stops. But then, like the brother said,
So we
while
could
you said
say-
creation of the book, it kind of was confusing a little bit.
Oh.
That's not part of creation, so it was confusing a bit. But I
Gotcha.
understood, right?
We're talking about the heavens.
No.
The heavens and the creation, those matters stop at the what? At the Aush. Stops at the Aush. But we could say there's an exception where it says in the authentic narration where the Prophet ﷺ said that verily Allah Ta'ala has written in the book that is with him above the throne.
Right.
We could say there's this exception, and that's that book. The Messenger of Allah ﷺ said it's a book that Allah has written within it, verily my mercy precedes my wrath. And that's with him above the throne.
No.
Follow.
Is the throne above the footstool, or is it on like the same plane?
No, it's above. The throne is above everything. Above the footstool. Then you have the water. Then you have the water, and then you have the throne. And the throne is bigger and it's the highest of the high. It's at the highest of the creation. Everything, the throne, as we said, that's considered the ceiling of the creation. It's called Saqf al-Makhluqat. Saqf. Saqf is like a ceiling. Or it's like a ceiling. Saqf is like a ceiling, technically. But it's just a description to show that that's where what? The creation stops. And that's considered the highest of the what? The creation.
When thinking of the vastness
Mm-hmm.
of the distance between the heavens, like you said, it's 500 years between each heaven. Are we even thinking about the other hadith as well, where Allah mentions the angels ascend to him within a day, which is 50,000 years?
So say it again.
Right?
Say it one more time. I'm sorry.
Comparing to the shoulder, the distance.
An angel.
Yeah, I'm saying so. And then we think about the other hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the angels ascend to Allah in a day, but to us would be 50,000 years.
Exactly.
So I'm saying, like, is it okay to even think, like, when you say 500 years, like, it's even that vast, like,
No, the hadith says clearly
it's 500 years.
that from one heaven to the second of what we will understand
Okay, well, we understand.
of the human being.
Okay, now.
It says the hadith says clear, or the narration hadith al-am. It says masirati 500 am. It says that what will be a traveler. Meaning, of course, for one of us,
Okay.
the distance of it is 500 years. From one heaven to the next. From one heaven to the second. Of what we will understand as a travel would take, in order to reach that distance, 500 years. Follow.
So like when you die, you go to a certain heaven, right? So after that, can you travel to like the next one? If you take that long?
Once you die, everything changes. There's nothing the same in this dunya. Nothing is the same in this dunya. Everything changes. Once you die, you will go above the heavens in a manner that Allah knows best. Where those heavens, you'll be passing them. And if you're from the righteous, this is something that comes in the hadith, which is in Imam Ahmad in his Musnad. It says that the heavens and its inhabitants will be praising you. And they'll be finding it in a manner that is saying, or they'll be saying to you, what is this blessed, wholesome soul passing by us? So then it will ascend in a manner, like we said, Allah knows best. Because we know the affairs of the hereafter, and once you die, change. They're not like how it is in this dunya anymore. It's totally different. Then we know that the soul of the believer will what? Will go up. That's another hadith to show that Allah is above. Because the hadith, which is a Muslim Imam Ahmad, where it says that the soul ascends and it will pass by one heaven. And that heaven will be praising the soul that's pleasant. And then it'll go by another heaven and it will be praising that soul that's pleasant all the way up. Until it will what? That it will be said to that particular soul, that it will what? Tell that pleasant soul to be what? Wait in his grave. Then it says it will go back and it will go back down in his grave again. It will go into your body. And Allah knows best. Like we said, the affairs of the hereafter, once you leave this dunya, everything changes. Nothing's the same but what you see. What you see in front of you will not be how it is in the hereafter. It's totally changed. So affairs that you might consider to be what? So-called slow or long remote distances, those affairs could be attained probably in seconds or less. You understand? Those matters have changed. That's the reason why what led the people misguided down the road, they misguided because they only perceive things based upon what's in front of them and what their mind can fathom of what they see on an everyday basis. Anything that goes beyond that, they can't accept it. That's the problem. The Prophet ﷺ also described how fast the jinn is. They're very fast. As it comes verses in the Quran that the Arsh, the throne of the queen of Bilqis, during the time of Prophet Sulaiman, alayhi salatu wasalam, one of the jinn said, I will bring you the throne of Bilqis before you stand up. And the Arsh of Bilqis was far. One of the jinn said, I'll bring it to you before you blink your eyes. That's to let you know that the affairs of the unseen are what? Different. In comparison to what's the realm of the human beings. It's different. Totally different ability. That's the jinn. That's some of the jinn and the shayateen. You understand? That's from some of the jinn and the shayateen. It's in the story. The story's in the ayah. It's in the book of Allah. It's there. It's either Surah Naml or Surah Saba. One of the two. It's the Surah Naml, Surah of the ants. Because we know that Sulaiman could speak to the animals. And he could understand the languages of the insects. Can your mind even begin to understand that? You understand? Like the ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the jinn said to Sulaiman, Ana atika bih qabla an taquma min maqamik. It says in the ayah, I will bring you the throne of the peace before you stand up. There's another one that wanted to compete with him. He said, I'll bring it to you before you blink. That's extremely fast. Can anybody to even begin to understand how fast that is? Can your mind even begin to understand it? Can. So that's to let you know that the affairs of what? Once you die, the affairs changes. Things that you think are far and remote could be now just mere blink of a second. And that's what the Messenger of Allah ﷺ did when he was what? When he was raised above the heavens in one night. He covered those great distances in the manner that Allah knows best, where no human being traveled, and Allah addressed him directly in regards to the obligation of those prayers. And we know that the Messenger of Allah also spoke to Musa that night, where he descended to the other heavens, and Musa said, go back, ask Allah for the reduction. Your ummah won't be able to handle it. It's too much. 50 prayers a day? That's too much. Go back and ask Allah to do that. But anyway, though that great distance was covered in one night, that's to let you know that the affairs of the unseen and the affairs that's pertaining, what's connected with the realm of the unseen, are not like our affairs of this dunya what we see in front of us. Totally different thing. Is it clear, everyone? But however, those verses that we find, that's to give us a type of what? An understanding of in our minds of how great Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's ability is. Like for example, the affairs of Surah Al-Ma'arij, where the angels ascend to him of what we understand as a time frame of 50,000 years. Another proof to show how the affairs of the hereafter will be changed. On the day of resurrection, there's verses that say that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make the day of resurrection like the evening or a day. Then you have verses that said that they will be staying on the day of resurrection for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. You'll find that they gather the narration by saying those narrations that say there will be like a part of a day, that's for Allah making it easy upon the believers. To make the affair easy for them. And now for the day, for the disbelievers, He will make it long and difficult. Those matters are all are different. On the day of resurrection, the hereafter, the affairs will be changed. Another dalil to show that it changes. Can you imagine that Allah will change our state? I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us from the people of paradise. The people of paradise will live forever. Can you even understand that? And it will stay one age forever. Can your mind even understand that? That's to let you know the affairs of the hereafter will be changed. Another proof to show that is that Prophet Musa, alayhi salatu wasalam, could not see Allah. Meaning, when he said he couldn't see Allah, meaning his body couldn't withstand it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed of what we understand as a fingertip. But however, it doesn't resemble. But that's just to put in our mind what? How great Allah is. That's all. Not to make a what? Resemblance. Is it clear what I'm saying? Not to make a resemblance, but just to let you know how great Allah Ta'ala is. When Allah revealed of what we as human beings understand as a fingertip, it what? Decimated the mountain. And Musa fell out unconscious. That's to let you know what? That Allah Ta'ala, to show Musa, in this world, your body can't handle it. You're too weak. However, on the day of resurrection, and in paradise, Allah will change the physical state of the human being. Where they'll be able to what? Withstand the sight of Allah. Where they'll be able to see Allah, and they will be what? Destroyed if they look upon Him. That's to let you know the affairs of the hereafter will be totally what? Changed. In order for a human being now to live forever and not aging, is to let you know that the creation in the hereafter will be totally what? Different. Affairs will be different and changed. They're not going to be the same. Can anyone in this room think, how God can I live forever and be on one age? And in addition to that, as you live in paradise, inshallah, all of it, we ask Allah to give us Brent's paradise, you will continue to increase in being handsome. So you could be more attracted to your wife, and your wife could be more attracted to you in paradise. And each time, as you increase, she gets more beauty, and more beauty, and more beauty, and more beauty, and more to increase more pleasure, and more pleasure, and more pleasure. Your mind can't, that's affairs that you can't, your mind cannot, in this world you cannot understand that. Because the affairs of the hereafter are what, everyone? Different. Similar to that is the hellfire. Same exact thing. The hellfire where people will be tortured and they will be revived and will be tortured over again. And their body will be made bigger because they're going to have to live forever in order to be punished. So the hellfire is the same affair in certain aspects. But just to let you know that the mere fact that the human being will live forever is to clearly let you know that the affairs of the hereafter will be totally what? Different. Is it clear, everyone?
No.
Is it clear what I'm saying? No. Alright, we'll stop here. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.